Welcome to the American Made and Paid Show, the home of free speech and independent thought.
The big story is freedom of speech is really in trouble. The far left knows that at any time they can call for a sponsor boycott of anyone they despise.
It is right here, right now, where you'll get your weekly dose of unfiltered truth.
It's non-negotiable. Pre-existing conditions will be protected. This president has said this as a candidate.
Insight.
Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again.
And information that challenges the American way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the American Made and Paid Show. Hope you're all doing well. I'm back here at Professor Drag. I'm your host, Zach. And, man, a lot of shootings. You know, Dayton, Ohio shooter and El Paso shooter. You know, there's a lot to be said about this. I know last week we were literally just talking about the whole Gilroy shooter, right? And people are already creating a lot of sort of commonalities between all these guys. I don't want to talk about sort of the ins and outs of the you know, how they're like left-wing lunatics and everything. All I will leave out there for everybody was that there was an Antifa planned thing in El Paso 2 days beforehand that Andy Ngo, the Antifa journalist that got, you know, his head kicked in, you know, a few weeks ago, talked about. That's all I'll leave it. But I really want to talk about, Second Amendment rights, you know, guns again. And I was actually funny before I was jumping into this. I was literally looking up, and I'm debating whether I should actually go out and get pistol trained and go get a gun because I'm in Arizona. And I will say this, like, guns are such a big part of Arizona's culture, yet I will say this. We don't experience a lot of mass shootings like these other places do. So that was one of the interesting things, right? I mean, I'm sure Arizona has shootings.
Yeah, that famous one.
Yeah, I know. But not to, I mean, it's not.
I mean, it wasn't.
Like
I mean, I guess it could be considered mass because it was more than one, but because it was a Congress lady that got shot.
Oh.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but what was your insight on this? You said something about Tim Pool and Subverse having some good perspective on this. I just wanted to hear.
Oh, no. Tim Pool had nothing to do with this shooting. No, I was just saying earlier that congratulations to those guys. They raised $1 million for their new YouTube channel because and basically everybody knows how, you know, everybody's getting deranked. You got deranked, or I don't know how that stuff works on YouTube. Yeah. But a way around it is to raise money, like at a crowdfunding source. That's what he did. He raised $1 million in under a month. Like, I think it took him 22 days, was set a record.
Wow.
For $1 million. And it's because I think people really are hungry for, you know, people like you that give opinions and, you know, give a different take on the news.
Where did you see that he raised that much money?
It's well, just let me Google that. I'm gonna Google Tim Pool. Tim Pool, yeah, Subverse. Just Google Tim Pool Subverse and you'll see.
Well, I know he's partnering up with Minds, which is a pretty big sort of neutral platform.
This one says we raised over 1 million for Subverse in 23 hours. That's not true. I think it was 22 days, which is still a record. I mean, look, $1 million it's number. If you just Google Tim Pool Subverse, it should be one. Who is Tim Pool? I don't know what that means. Subverse general discussions. Tim Pool on Twitter. We raised over 1 million on Subverse.
You sure it's not a different thing? Because there's another Subverse out there. There's like another channel called Subverse. So I just want to make sure before we.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to send it to you right now.
All right.
Because it's on his. If you go to Tim Pool at Timcast Twitter, you'll see. But yeah, I don't know. He says 23 hours.
Yeah, well, that's not super relevant, is it? Let's talk about the guns. Let's talk about the shootings and your thoughts on it.
Well, no. It's kind of relevant, but we'll get into that after we get into more about guns. Because, like, you know me, like I'm I'm pro Second Amendment, but me myself, I will never own a gun. I just won't because.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude, are you kidding me? Give me a gun and I'll be crazy as hell. I've actually owned guns before, and that was really bad. And
it was real bad, huh?
no, it was real bad for me. I mean, it's just, it's like, yeah, when you get angry, you really, yeah. But let's not talk about that right away. But the thing is, yeah, I'm for people having a gun. I really am, because the threat is real.
Well, that's the thing. I want to make this topic of this show: should you own a gun? Just that. We can talk about gun shootings and all that, but let's make this more of a personalized opinion. Should you own a gun in this country?
Well, see, but that's the thing, and the answer is, okay. I just sent it to you. The answer is, it has to be yes, because the thing is, because I hear a lot of people I heard this opinion before. Savage has said it, and a lot of people have said this. There is no point in owning guns because the government has bigger guns. What are you gonna do with your .357 Magnum against a tank? When the military comes in with their tank, what are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And of course that's all logical. And in all honesty, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
So in order to defend yourself against this government, you really do need tactical training and how to survive tank attack. Seriously, what would you do if there was a big...
It'll be like Tiananmen all over again if
no, but there's ways around it. You know what I mean? Because a tank is huge. All you got to do is just avoid certain things, blah 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 blah, and just there's ways. I hate to give away these types of, I don't want to give advice in these types of
areas.
Yeah, I just don't. But the bottom line is, we really do need guns, or just the ability to defend yourself against a rogue government, against a government that really does want to take away your rights. And then for me, it becomes a moral question. Is this really what Jesus would want? And I only ask that only because I know my mind. Because when I did own guns, I guarantee you, it was a lot quicker to end conflict with a gun.
Well, I mean, I know people will use it just to scare people off, and that's what I'm talking about more so, not having to actually use it. But like I said, my question here is, should you own a gun?
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. I don't think some people shouldn't own guns because, obviously.
Clearly, yeah.
And it's the thing. It's and I hate to say things like this. Can you say something like only Christians can own guns because, give a gun to a Muslim and they're going to shoot you for no reason? Not no reason, but not for a valid reason. Whereas would Christians shoot you for a valid reason? And that's the thing. So it's you can't make, in theory, you cannot make those types of judgments. And so that's why you have to give those rights to everybody. And so, yeah, you have to give the right for people to own a gun. Everybody has to have that right, including, non-Christians or, atheists. It doesn't matter. Everybody should be able to own a gun, but it's just a personal question. For me personally, I just couldn't do it. I just, me personally, look, I'm trained in my hands, so I'm quite confident with my skills with my hands.
Yeah, but the thing is, you go up against, I think specifically we're talking about bad people who own guns here.
Yeah, I'll go up against a guy with a gun, no problem, and a knife, because knives are actually more it's more dangerous to.
Yeah, they're more deadly in close quarters. I know, I've heard that too.
And it really is. So far away, if the dude got a gun, you're toast anyway. Even if he had a gun, whoever shoots first is going to be, if they're a good aim, you're toast. It doesn't matter if you have a gun or a knife or the best fighter in the world, you're toast. But for me personally, and it's just only me personally, because I am extremely skilled. So yeah, I just choose not to use any type of weapon because it's hard to negotiate or mediate a situation when you're armed. You know what I mean? So like if you're intimidating to people, they automatically jump into fight or flight, and most people they're not going to run because they know I'll catch them. Because you look at me and then the stereotypes, kind of, you just start assessing situations using stereotypes. I was like, man, that black dude, I bet you he's faster than me. You know what I mean? So it's like, and if the dude is fat or something, then they're gonna you could be black and fat, and he's like, oh, I'm too fat to run away from this guy, so I'm gonna fight him. Because that's what fight or flight is. It just kicks in. It's either you're gonna fight or you're gonna run, and if you're gonna fight me, then yeah. But if I'm unarmed, there's less likelihood of them wanting to fight, and they'll want to talk their way out, because it's still a way of, it's like, it's fight or flight. Talking your way out is the form of running away. And if you could open yourself up to conversations, then yeah, you can diffuse the situation and it's, and there's no need for the gun for me personally. But on the other hand, you look at what happened in Gilroy, and it kind of came out that the dude committed suicide. But the cops didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, they shot him up because why? Because they just don't, you don't know. He's the shooter. He's the guy with the gun. So you just shoot. So even though he shot himself in the mouth, and you need a gun for situations like that. So, because in a situation like that, I'm hiding. I'm not, because I don't carry a gun, I'm going to hide. Because why? The dude is an active shooter, just spraying bullets. So, I don't know. It's, if you're going to have a gun, you have a responsibility. And that's not a responsibility I want, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Because I got way too many anger issues, way too many this and that. So,
well, it's funny. It's good that you recognize that. But I think that, and that's the thing, we can sit here and talk about the shooters, right? And I think the first thing people do whenever it's anything shooting related is pin it on if they're a white supremacist or whatnot. And that's exactly what's happening now. This is always going to be a blame game. And that's the thing, is I don't want to do away with that, because here's the thing. Donald Trump is proposing more gun background checks in immigration, right? Because that's clearly not something that's nationally enforced too much. And I know that that's not going to stop people from getting their hands on firearms. One thing I want to add is that the Dayton, Ohio shooter was actually a Democrat. He was like, he's a leftist.
No, but they were all people who just played too much video games.
Well, that was going to be the next thing I wanted to slide into, is because people are not acknowledging, like, when we keep playing the blame game, who's to say whether it's one or two shooters from whichever end of the political aisle or 20 shooters, right? The real problem is, like, look at, these are all, like, if you look at the picture of the Dayton guy, the El Paso guy, and the Gilroy guy, it's like, it's the same type of guy. These guys are not ex-military. They don't have PTSD. They're into metal and video games and anime, and
no, but
they like shooting people. Like, it's like, that's the problem. It's another carnal lust.
Yes. No, but that's why, like, all of these shootings really does come down to, it's just, because I don't know. It seems like every episode is the same.
Well, I don't want to keep harping on the same thing, but I want to talk about the ins and outs.
No, but this is the whole thing. Look, we said this when we were speaking about the Gilroy thing, and this is just a theory. I have no way to prove this, but just based on the information at hand, every one of those shooters stayed at home and they played a lot of video games. It's just, no, but and here's the thing. What if these people belong to teams? Because video game gamers, or I don't know, e-sport people, whatever you call it. These people are in teams. They've never met each other, and these teams are all over the world.
Right.
And maybe these people belong to like the same league of video game players. What if? And
Yeah, but I don't think we should ban all video games. I mean, we've talked about this.
It's not a matter of banning. This is not a matter of banning, but I forgot. I think it was Al Gore's wife actually said this, and George Bush's wife.
Tipper Gore?
Yeah. And they actually combined in the old days, talking crazy about that we should watch these video games and rock and roll, because rock and roll and video games are teaching kids to be demonic.
So you're right. I am glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about that in one of these shows. She was the one in the 80s that spearheaded the campaign of putting the parental advisory explicit lyrics on all the albums.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, one of the spokespeople who countered that was the lead singer, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, a glam metal band from LA, saying that, hey, because she, it was her and a coalition of like other parents and politicians that were just like, they had a list of like the 15 worst songs in rock and roll, and then they slapped all the explicit labels on them. Yep. Before that, that didn't exist, but she spearheaded that. But here's the thing: to some degree, I was talking to my buddy about this last night. I kind of agree with that. To some degree, I do agree with, like, not censorship necessarily, but parents need to understand that, like, dude, if you buy your kid Call of Duty and it turns them into the most violent, screaming, they drive you crazy in the living room type kids, I mean, like, clearly there's a problem here. Like...
But my point of bringing that up is because people are honestly missing. This is not about gun control. We don't need more gun control. We just need more Christ. We need more parents who believe in that. Because I remember when that happened. And that's what my whole thing even back then was, if they just went to church, everything would be fine. People who go to church never do bad things. We do bad things. And don't worry, but we're not crazy. Because I always used to think like that. Like, don't worry about me. I'm not crazy. Just send your crazy kids to church and you'll be fine. But that's how I used to think. Like, people who like that. Because, we were just never into video games. We liked arcades, but only to hang out. It wasn't like I'm putting quarters in there. I'm trying to, pick up on women or find some gullible people so we could find a place to go. But she was actually right back then. And it kind of is the same thing now. It's like, hey, look, our society does not value life.
Right.
And these video games make it way easier to not value life. And that's what it is. So, my thing is like this.
Mm-hmm.
Should we honestly own guns?
Well, I want to open this discussion up, because let's just not talk about the guns. Let's talk about the possibilities of other things that go down, like domestic violence, right? Or protection at home invasions and all that. You know what story comes to mind that maybe I can get your perspective on? Stacey Dash, like, basically chased off a crazy psycho ex-boyfriend because she shot him in the arm, and he was gonna use. I think had she not been armed or whatnot, she would have been killed.
Well, see, but that's my point. See, like, I think if you own a gun, and you hate to say things like this because I know it's not constitutional or anything like that, but you, honest to God, if you're going to own a gun, you have to have a strong moral background.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the truth. It's because you can't let a crazy, wife beater own a gun, because eventually he's going to start pistol whipping his wife, because that used to happen in the old days. In the old days, 264 women were murdered for every 1,000 that was the number one way of murder in the old days, was domestic violence in the Wild West. Because everybody, you wanted to be like the Wild West? Well, the Wild West wasn't bad unless you were married.
And if she weren't in her place, you'd shoot her. That's horrible.
Yeah, or pistol whip her to death. Just beat her so bad, And the thing is, the remedy was, you got to go to church, talk to your pastor or whatever, and eventually it went down. And it did. We got it to a point where it's come on, that never happens. But what we replaced it with was video games. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for people owning guns. I really am. But I'm also all in favor, if you're gonna own a gun, you really, and because God, you just honestly hate to put regulations on guns, but you have to have no, because you could easily cheat the test. But yeah, like honestly, you have to have some kind of moral background, because what are the restrictions? They don't allow mentally ill people to own a gun. But at the same token, I would say you shouldn't be demonically possessed if you own a gun. You know what I mean? And there has to be some sort of, because this is where it gets really sketchy and scary, because you don't want to have an Inquisition type of group. Hey, do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe? You know what I mean? It's like, and then that's also not right either. But yeah, there has to be some sort of litmus test in order to own a gun. Because seriously, I don't know, me personally, I can't own a gun, but I don't see why you can't own a gun, because what if there was an active shooter somewhere in Scottsdale, Arizona? You could stop that person. You really could. You could shoot him in the hands, shoot him in the leg. That's why you need training, because you could literally, blow a dude's head up if you don't know how to aim on an accident. I think I told you the story where my one of my mentors' kid was shot in the neck. And that killed him in a fight. Like, her son was one of the first to ever graduate high school in her family. And so they had a party, and, somebody had a fight broke out. So the elder brother jumped up on this elevated, raised, flower bed, and he shot in the air twice. So the guy, by just pure luck, shot him in the leg, which is normal because most people just...
But he fell and hit him in the neck. I remember you saying this.
Yeah, and when he was falling, boom, so...
Well, I'm also hearing here. I want to get your opinion on another thing too, just to freshen this up, right? Because a lot of people, if they don't make this like a white supremacist crime, they're gonna make it it's gonna automatically be a race type crime, right? And of the 250 mass shootings this year, I hear alternative sources because the most televised ones are of white men, right? But the reality is over 60% were of an ethnic background. So we're talking illegal immigrant, Black or Hispanic.
It's proportional.
Proportionate. Right. But we don't hear about any of those, typically because.
Yeah, because, the numbers are bigger with the white dudes for some reason. And I believe it's because of economics more than anything else. It's just that, the gay shooting in Florida that killed 50.
Yeah.
That was just because he found a good location and boxed everybody in.
Right.
And that's just basically how it works. Like at the church, in the church, they were boxed in as well. So that's why so many people, but like in the Gilroy shooting, was it a lot? Well, I mean, there was tens of thousands of people there, so that's not bad. Only 14, out of 25,000, only 14 got hit. Not bad. So, when you look at it, it's all. I mean, you hate to because death is death, and technically, millions of people die every day, and millions of people are born every day. So, how they die is how they die, but. Because that is just part of life, but yeah, it's for me, the big issue is who should honestly own guns and who shouldn't own guns. We have the right. Everybody should own a gun, just because it protects yourself from big giant governments who claim to. I mean, this is why I'm convinced of this. The government, I don't care who it is, the government we have today in the United States is just one big giant entity who believe they are God.
Right.
It's the truth. That's what they think. That's why you need a gun to defend yourself against that.
Sure.
Because it's a lot harder to take over somebody who has a gun than it's a guy who doesn't have a gun.
Well, that's why I think if we look at this from the gun control aspect, the argument against that is every country that has fallen down through socialism or communism, the first thing here is they get people to believe that life isn't valuable, and then they take their arms away because they start to devalue their own lives. And that's how countries like Cambodia, China, Russia, and Germany instilled gun control and killed their own people. And unfortunately, before that even happens, before that type of takeover happens, the sovereignty of the individual, even with their own life, is something that they take away first. See, that's one thing that I want people to understand. And maybe we've said this a bunch of times, but I want to harp it again. I mean, Switzerland has one of the highest gun ownership rates and the lowest homicide rates. And I think if we're still looking at that from a, I don't know, per 100,000 people, it's still relatively low in contrast to other countries who have instilled gun control, right? South Africa, Colombia, Mexico. I mean, even if you're law abiding, they're still prohibited, a lot of these firearms. And I think that, it's going to be an ongoing thing. Do I think that more thorough, extensive vetting needs to happen? Yes. But here's the thing also. I personally think, this is going to be the first time I bring this up, that because each individual state has their own degrees of gun control, that is what creates this problem. Because then you're going to have discrepancies, right, of people that just basically drive to another state and have ownership because ease of access. Like, for example, for California, right, even though I don't think I've heard a lot of mass murders by guns happening in California. I mean, this is just from what I've heard. I mean, you literally just have to drive to Nevada or Arizona, and you can buy all the guns you want. They'll sell you a grenade launcher. I mean, contingent on if you pass a basic background test, right? So my question is this. When certain states don't allow people to exercise certain fundamental rights and freedoms protected by the Constitution, does that mean people will go through more extensive lengths to acquire what they're denied? Now, I still believe that crazy people shouldn't be armed, right? Just because they're crazy. I mean, how else are you going to go about saying it? But we know that more gun control laws don't increase overall safety. They just don't.
No, they don't. I mean, because look at what happened and this is a weird reason to be upset, but I was so upset that the reason why, have you heard of the Joker killings?
No.
In Colorado. So anyway, everybody knew that the latest the third part of the trilogy of the Christopher Nolan Batman movie was going to be awesome. Was just going to be, and it was going to break records. I guarantee you this, that the third Batman movie had a chance to really beat Avatar in the movie theaters.
Really?
Because of how good The Dark Knight was, with Heath Ledger. So when the third one came out, everybody was hyped. But that Thursday night, some crazy dude dressed up as the Joker and started shooting up the theater. And he killed, I don't know how many people he killed, but he was clearly mentally ill. And he even said what he was going to do, and the doctor just let him go. And anyway, so long story short, but that killing, actually, nobody went to go see Batman because of what had happened.
I remember that when someone came into the theater and shot it up, right?
Yeah, but guess what? That theater was a no-gun zone.
Yeah, that's how it always happens.
No, but that's the point. So, look, and this is why I'm for good people to have guns. Because a good person is going to stop that guy. You know what I mean? And it's just how it works. Like what happened in the church killing. Some dude had a rifle, drove to the church and he killed that other dude. That's what happens. So like good people will do that. And so we need guns to stop a dude with a gun who, you know, because he got distance and like, you know, like almost like a sniper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you need another sniper to take out that sniper. You just do. You just can't use your bare hands and block bullets. You know, it's just not, we're not Superman. But it's, to me, from what I've seen, and the evidence does support this. The evidence will support this. Whenever you have gun-free zones or drug-free zones,
Sure. Yeah.
I guarantee you that's where you're going to find the guns. That's where you're going to find the drugs, because those zones just literally invite crime. It's just what they do. Why? Because everybody knows that it's just a meaningless, and I mean meaningless, token gesture. That's all that is. And so if you really are a criminal, where are you going to go? Because look, I'm telling you now, and it goes back to what we had spoke about earlier. Police officers committing suicide is the number one form of an officer dying in the line of duty. It's why did they commit so much suicide? Because many of these cops experience shooters and active shooter situations where the killer wants to be killed. And it forces the cops to, you know, it's like, I don't know if you ever heard that expression, you know, suicide by cop.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. I mean, if you ever speak to a train conductor that's doing Caltrain, that drives the Caltrain from San Jose to San Francisco, ask any of those train conductors or the engineers, the people who drive the train, ask them just point blank, hey man, have you ever experienced a guy jumping in front of the train? And they all say the same thing. It's one of the worst things they've ever, and it gives them nightmares. And they go, and I remember this one conductor told me, he was like, dude, like, what did I do to deserve this? You know what I mean? It's like you just go to work and all of a sudden, bam, man, it's just, and you know, it's a gruesome sight. So, you know, what does this have to do with gun control and everything else? It has everything to do with gun control, because suicide is a real thing here. These active shooters, these people who want to, you know, they play all day with their video games and their parents. And it all started with the TV. Well, as soon as the TV became a babysitter, it's what happened. Bad parenting.
Yeah.
So with these bad parents coupled with this horrific music and
man, you're starting to sound like one of those. You're starting to sound like one of those like old school conservative Baptist like farts. You know what I mean?
No, but it's the truth. If you ever listen to these songs, it's insane.
I believe it. I was just talking to my friend last night. I'm like, were the people in the old days that banned like rock and roll music and everything, were they really too crazy to do things? And then more and more, I actually think if you don't parent your kids right, yeah, that stuff can influence, like, you know.
Well, not just influence, but because you know, for a brief moment, I was in music, and you know, my best friend at the time, when he committed suicide, he wrote this song called "Last Call," and you know, it's really gruesome. You know, and I remember telling him, I was like, dude, we're never gonna sing this. This is like, dude, are you kidding me? This is all about death and madness. It's like, I said, if you don't get this kind of crap out of your head, you're really going to act out on it. And he goes, oh, no, I'm not. And later that year, New Year's Eve, he committed suicide. But,
oh my gosh.
No, I'm not. And we're all going to go out and da. Oh my geez. But anyway, but the thing is, it's just from firsthand experience, knowing what lyrics can do. It's the thoughts. And these thoughts really do choke, like, because we were more like a punk, like, well, they call like industrial, so like a punk industrial type band. And we were angry, but we had like really, like, it's clever music. And we're taking shots at the government because, of course, we're all anarchists and we hate the government. So every song was anti-government.
Right.
It was angry, but anti-government type music that was catchy. But, once he started looking and talking about death and dying and it's yeah, man. Yeah, but I'm telling you, like, now looking back, it's like, shit, that's demon stuff. That's the kind of stuff that demons seek out in a person.
Speaking of demons, this is a lot not very relevant, but in our next show, we should talk about UFOs because that's a big deception. Like, that's another thing. I sent you a link for it. One of our
I was looking at it right now.
One of our I want to talk about that. Not only freshen it up so we don't keep repeating the same things, but I really think that it is just going to come down to influence, right? We can talk about mental health all day and everything that we want, but at the same time, we talked about this. Like, part of the reason why some of these people go crazy is because they're possessed, and I really think that when we talk about influence in this regard, mass influence, it really doesn't help. I think that what we live in is a culture that likes to blame others. That's really what it's all about. If people love themselves more and they also took a good, long, hard look at themselves, they'll really find that usually the source of the unhappiness and whatnot is kind of come from them, not because of what other people have done to you, but because of where you're coming from. And sometimes just understanding that fundamental concept, like, how do you go from doing that to like shooting up other people?
Well, you know what the one thing I think that people don't really look at too is the jealousy aspect that a lot of these kids have. Like, they don't understand why they don't have what others have. And then they become obsessed with, oh, my best friend has this super hot chick or super intelligent chick or something. Why does this girl like him and not me? And they don't understand that. They don't just develop social skills that make them jealous of what their friends have or able to do. So then they, try to overcompensate by being very good at video games. And because they're very good at video games, they're getting, maybe attention. Like that kid who won $3 million for being the best at Fortnite. And no, but it's true. Like, that dude got $3 million. So the thing is, too, because it's not, because I don't know, like, I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as this guy won the $3 million, that all of these mass shootings are happening now. Because think about it. Now that these things are real competitions, what if these dudes were just losers who couldn't qualify to play?
It could be a variety of different reasons, but yeah.
Yeah, like, it's like, man, like, so many things are happening right now. It's like the change in our culture. And so is it really important to have gun control? No, but it's really important to bring back religion into the school systems, into everything. Because without it, parents are lost. Because even like today, I'll talk a little bit about, my meeting. A couple of investors were having trouble with their kid, who's also like 20 something years old. And I kind of told them, it's like, the problem is you guys could be as religious as you want, but you guys sent them to school where they taught the students not to respect their parents, not to respect religion. Because why? Schools in the Bay Area teach the kids that religion is for the weak. That's what they teach. They never say Christianity is something that strong people do, something that smart people do. They consider Christianity some form of occult religion that only the dumb and people who don't like science participate in. When it's the exact opposite. The greatest scientists and greatest doctors were all Christian people. But for some reason, the Muslim Islamic faith is taught to be this great bastion of strength. So a lot of these kids get this weird indoctrination at school. Mm-hmm. So you could be good parents, but because you send them to, like, look, part of it being a good parent is sending your kids to a good school.
Yeah.
Even if you're mandated to go to this public school, look, don't go to that school. Just don't, because what's better? To have a Stanford education growing up, but you grow up to hate your parents, and you grow up hating God and thinking that, Christianity is some kind of taboo voodoo weird sex cult, you know what I mean, that oppresses women. I mean, seriously. Or just having a lack of an education, but you have a good moral fiber. What's better? Having a good moral ethic background, or some quote unquote fancy education? And I would say it's better off being a Christian. Trust me on that, because fancy schooling don't mean anything if you don't understand the principles of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing that we're suffering through right now. It's just a reality. So this another, gosh, man.
Well, it's just a lack of morality, and I think that that's the big thing here. But I think that at the same time, what amazing, the foundation that can be built on top of having the moral code, having Christianity. I mean, look at all these godly men that have gone on to like just create like the greatest things ever. When we think about real innovators in the past and brilliant minds that were sort of untarnished because they put their morals first and God first. And that's also how we're designed. It's like, if you're designed for that, you will actually be more prosperous. You will actually fare better. I'll give you an example. If you had that moral compass, right, of values in your head, you would basically be educated or taught not to covet, right? Not to be jealous, not to envy other people. So what do you do as an alternative? Well, if I'm going to serve God, I'm going to create more value for others and help other people. And usually what happens as a result? Well, you get what you're looking for. This is just in a practical standpoint. This is not like follow this and this is what you're given. But if your mind's and your heart's in the right place, like, you'll be fine. Really. Like, we live in a country where it's like, dude, if you're nice to people, you will actually probably do well in life. Like, that's really all it takes. Like, I get it if you're in like Africa or whatnot, or some other country where it's godless. But Americans are nice as a whole, as a people. If you're nice to people and you're good to people, you're probably going to fare pretty well. Really. Like,
well, let me put it to you like this, because I said a very bold statement. What's better, being a
I feel like you have
Christian or uneducated?
Yeah.
And I said being a Christian. No, but I'll tell you why. Let's say 2019, you're an uneducated but a Christian. If you are a Christian, uneducated in the Bay Area, most likely you'll probably figure out how to do construction, because I don't know if it's real or not, but the story is Jesus was a construction worker. So the only thing
carpenter, not
was a carpenter. So if he's a carpenter, that means, hey, you know what? Modern times, I should learn how to do carpentry, which is construction. You will be better off as a construction worker, learning how to build your own house from the ground up on empty land and become an instant millionaire than some tech dude making $120,000 in San Francisco, paying, $3,000 to $4,000 a month in rent. You know what I mean? This guy just all he has to do is pay, a few $100s in taxes for the land and whatever it is for the land. His life will be better as a carpenter than any carpenter. Anybody that knows how to build a house in the Bay Area, his skills or her are worth millions of dollars. All you need is empty land, which is abundant in the Bay. All over the Bay Area, they're selling land that you could build a house on. But people don't, because it's so expensive. But an uneducated carpenter can come in there, buy the materials, do this and that, and he can work at McDonald's and save enough to get the materials.
And here's the thing, too. There's something nice about like not being too educated, because this relates. You're going to like this. A lot of the folks that I come across that are in that position, guess what? They don't have debt. They don't have death culture looming over their heads, dude.
No, but it's true.
It's so true, right? They don't.
Oh, God, it's true. No, but oh God, like that's
Isn't that true? Like,
yeah, no, but it's true. Makes me angry. See, hearing that makes me angry because I'm guilty of that, and it's killing us to this day. Still kills us. Fuck, it makes me mad. But it's true. Like having so much education is like a burden.
it's a burden. It's debt. You actually have to pay to burden yourself more. When I think time and time again, people have looked at a lot of different things, and sheer simplicity has always been the key to everything, really.
No, but it is because you got to untrain yourself. Because you got, okay, so like, oh God, I remember in the old days, and somebody actually told us, I'm going to watch it, but there's this, because somebody says, yeah, you want to learn about your history and how you guys came about in your work. And then they say, yeah, it's a movie called The Red Sea Dive Hotel or something like that. And they get into how we came about. And something about some Israelis, special forces were saving these Ethiopians. Because, you know, when the Muslims see, because people don't get it. In the 70s, when Jimmy Carter was president, the Muslims were crazy, just burning down all the Jews, like the original Jews, like the black ones in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
They were burning down the Christians. They were killing everybody in Ethiopia, everybody in Sudan, just going crazy, killing everybody. That's what they were doing. Like, seriously, like, people don't get it. We were giving money to all of these Muslim leaders, presidents, to stop them from killing people, but they just used that money just to kill them even more. Like, the Muslims are crazy. So, you know, because everybody was like, how can we know so much about bars and nightclubs and things like that? But actually, that movie explains it. It was just by a chance of miracle of God that these dudes used an empty hotel as, like, because a bunch of refugees, like Jews that were, like these black Jews that were stuck at the Red Sea, there was an abandoned hotel, and there was like 200 of them staying there. And then like the commandos, or the Mossad, as they say, the Israeli Mossad, they found them, and they learned how to operate a hotel. And when the Germans were coming in as tourists, nobody knew. Like, and they were sneaking them out. And anyway, it's an interesting movie. They said it's on Netflix, but I haven't seen it, but I want to see it so I can kind of get a sense of what it's about. But anyway, that's why we've always learned how to do ever since then. So yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's a bad thing, but long story short, working with a lot of these people in the Middle East, because I don't think I said it on the air, but we still do a lot of work in the Middle East. And they're trying to get the counselor involved and things like that. But now that certain things are happening, it's too dangerous. But long story short, I had to untrain myself. Like, all of the education in the world is not going to train you for how these people think, because it's not about education. It's not about what Freud says or what Erickson says or Pavlov. It's about what's said in the Bible, you know, and it's having, if you have those fundamental beliefs or understanding, you're going to be able to be very successful anywhere in the world, because everybody understands about loving yourself and being kind to somebody else.
Well, if they don't know about it, they're going to respond to it. That's also another thing too.
No, but it's in everybody's DNA. It's literally in everybody's DNA. Because everybody had, like, you know, like Schwarzenegger said in that videotape, you gotta love what you do. Love your work. You gotta love it. And that's seriously, that's something I actually learned on the field. Is I gotta figure out what these people want. What do they want? And usually what they want is what makes them love themselves. And then, you know, but now I'm even more armed. I could just start instilling more Christianity principles in these people without them even knowing it. And they're like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Because a lot of Muslims, they don't want to be Muslims. nobody wants to be violent. That's why these people, like these princes or sheikhs, as they call them, they don't throw rocks at anybody. But if they stop other people from throwing rocks, then they're going to lose power. But it's the truth. It's like these people want to stone people for no reason because they got nothing. And when you got nothing, you just start throwing rocks for no reason because you need something to do. And it's kind of like these kids playing video games. They got nothing to do, but they act violently. And when video games get boring and then they see one of their teammates commit, mass murder, they're going to murder other people. And so murder is just, it's in every person who doesn't understand the first commandment. It's just a reality.
Yeah, no, I feel you 100% on that.
No, but it was hard to unteach myself that, because we always want to say something like, oh, all of these fancy underlined, like symptoms. We should have caught these symptoms. There's triggers. There's all these things we miss, but no, it's real simple. They don't love themselves. Why don't they love themselves? Because we're teaching them how to throw stones for no reason. Just like in the Middle East, they throw rocks for no reason. The princes, the kings, they don't even care. They really don't, because they love themselves. They understand the first principle. They just don't love God. They just love themselves, and they're kind to their neighbors, but they don't. It's a bastardization of Christianity, and that's why the whole system's all messed up. Because these guys don't know anything about loving themselves. They don't. That's why they judge. See, because when you're judging other people, you don't love yourself if you're judging others. When you love yourself, you don't care. You're not going to judge anybody because you have faith that, they'll be judged later by God. I'm not the judge. God's the judge. He'll handle that. It's not my responsibility to throw a rock at you. It's not. But these guys take it upon themselves to be judges in their own twisted way. That's why the poor are always throwing rocks, stoning each other. That's why black on black crime happens. That's why all of these things happen. And ultimately, I guess this could be my final thought.
Yeah.
Good people need to own guns too, because bad people will always have guns.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Because if you disarm people, obviously the people who are law abiding will not have firearms because they abide by the laws. But bad people have no ethics or morals. They're not going to listen to the law. So someone still at the end of the day needs to be able to be vigilant in that regard. And I think that's a good way to kind of end it. I'm really excited because we have to wrap this up because I do have to take a call, and I know you're busy, but we got to talk about UFOs tomorrow because that's going to be interesting.
Dude.
Talk about aliens, and it's a big deception. It's a big thing about it's related to demons, and Alex Jones on InfoWars has talked a lot about UFOs and demons because they're all interchangeable. Something to really discuss. So tune in for tomorrow's episode, guys. I mean, I have to really cut this short here because we're busy, but thank you guys for tuning in. Leave us an iTunes review if you haven't done so already, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.